Let's take a look at how to create a chart in Excel. We're going to use this small data set here, and what I want to be able to chart are the following columns. I'm going to highlight them just so that it's super clear where I'm looking on the screen. I want to highlight by team the winning percentage per team. Now I have an example here. It's just a picture that shows the ultimate chart that I want to see. And it's important to point out certain aesthetics. Number one, I want to have a bar chart. Number two, I want the names of the teams on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, I want to have the values of the winning percentage. I want to have this ranked from highest percentage to lowest, from top to bottom, and I want a title at the top. Finally, there are some other aesthetics here that will make more sense once we actually visualize how to do this, which is that I've deleted the bottom x-axis and I've also removed some of the grid lines, and we'll go over that in more detail in just a moment. First, let's look at how we select the data, because I use two columns here that are not side by side. And what I don't want to do is this, okay? I don't want to grab all of this data. I simply want to grab columns 1 and column 6. And I want to include the header because that's going to label my data, and then all of the data below it. So the way I'm doing this is I'm selecting my data, and then I'm using Command on the Mac or Control on a Windows computer, and I'm coming over and I'm selecting this column as well. So that Command or Control key is going to allow me to kind of move around Excel and select any place that I want to select without selecting cells in between. Okay, so again, I'm going to do this one more time. Select, Command or Control key, depending on your computer, and then select the second column. Then I'm going to go to Insert, and I want to come over here to my chart options. Okay, now I mentioned before, I know I want a bar chart that goes from left to right. And Excel, as we're going to see, has all of this preloaded for us. So I'm going to choose one of these bar charts, and I'm just going to select it. And right off the bat, you can see I'm starting to get a bit of what I need. Doesn't look exactly what I need, but we'll walk through the steps in just a moment. While I have all of my bars, they're not sorted from highest to lowest. And also, I don't have these data labels, what are called data labels off to the right. So why don't I do the following? And it doesn't matter what order we go in, but what we're going to do is we're going to point out some key features as we walk through these steps. So the first thing to note is when I click on the chart, I get a chart design menu. Okay, so if I click off of it, that chart menu goes away. I click back on, the chart menu comes back. Okay, so that's one key thing to note. The second thing to note is this add chart element over here on the left is going to be very important because it's got all of these different options. For instance, I want to add data labels outside the end. So I'm going to choose data labels outside end, and that's how I get to these percentages. But let's imagine that I want to make the font bigger, and I also want to remove my decimal precision. Well, I can use the font options here. And then if I want to change this from, let's say, 49.0% to simply 49%, I can select my underlying data and I can simply remove those decimals. And if you notice, the decimal precision leaves the chart as well. So this chart is based completely on the underlying data. There's an invisible link here between it. Okay, now I know that I have a Yankees orange bar because that's the top one, and then just imagine maybe the Yankees are our client, or maybe we're working for a firm that features New York area audience, and so we want for some reason to highlight the Yankees. So how do we do that? Well, we can actually select these bars, and if you notice, I click once and all the bars are selected, and I can get access to my paint box up here. Now, I don't want to have all the bars yellow, so I'm actually going to undo that. I only want the Yankees bar orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click one more time, and now only the Yankees bar is highlighted, and I can go ahead and just choose that bar and choose my paint options. Okay, now I still have this problem that it's not sorted the way that I want it, right? I want to get the Yankees on the top, and then go sort from top to bottom with the winning percentage on the top. So now I'm going to use some of the other features that we've been learning about, which is an auto filter. So I'm going to select the top row with my headers, and I'm going to go up here and just use my filter. And now I have access to sorting and filtering this data any way, which way I want. And if you notice, I just sorted from smallest winning percentage to largest, and my graph resorted. Now here's what the graph is doing. It's going from the bottom to the top. So it's going from the bottom of the y-axis, it's going to have the smallest, then the next biggest, next biggest, next biggest, and the largest winning percentage. So it's just important to understand what the graph is doing in relation to what the data table is doing. And as you can see, we can go back and forth and we'll see that the chart simply updates based on what we're choosing in our table. Okay, now I want to include 12-point font for my team names as well. I also know that since I have my percentages here next to each bar, which by the way, that's important because I want a user to easily come in, be able to tell which team has the highest winning percentage, which I can easily do now. A viewer's going to be able to very intuitively view this and see the ranking just visually. They're also going to have easy access to the actual number, which means this x-axis down here can simply go away. I don't want to have too much data. I want to have only the essential data in my visual that's needed to convey the message. This is redundant, so I'm going to get rid of that. All I want to do here is I'm going to click the delete key, and that gets rid of my axis. I also want to get rid of these lines. They're no longer necessary because I don't have the axis at the bottom anymore. I don't need them to help guide the viewer. And so they just end up being background noise and just more information that the viewer's eyes have to filter through. So I'm going to delete those as well. I do that simply by selecting the lines. You can see the top light blue circles that show that I've selected it. I'm going to hit delete now as well. That gets rid of that. The final thing I want to do is I want to update this title. And I'm done. Hope this is helpful. Keep in touch with questions.